So I'm joined now in studio by our own Kieran O'Connor, who was here to talk about lifelong Waterford supporter David Walsh from Abbeyside, who died earlier this week after a short illness. And Kieran, how will you remember David Walsh?
Well, I suppose firstly, on behalf of everyone, I suppose our sympathies to Ursula and all the Walsh family, indeed the Lynch family as well. But I think he'll be remembered as a larger-than-life character who wore his heart in his sleeve and as proud as Waterford man as I ever met.
Yeah, is a gentle giant a fair description of him, Kieran?
Yeah, gentle, but I'll tell you, if you got on the wrong side of David, you'd know it as well, but he'd forget it the next day. But he wore his heart in his sleeve. He was a passionate man and everything, a great family man. And I suppose when you speak of David, you think of his daughter Mary, and really Mary's tragic passing, and indeed poor Molly as well. David never got over it, literally broke his heart, and there wasn't a day went by, but she was strong in his thoughts. But he was getting back to the David of old and really got back to himself, which was very difficult. And I think Ursula and all the family and all his friends, supporters around him, were delighted to see that the David of old was back again, but never got over Mary's tragic death. But he did a lot of fundraising, and I think that helped him through that, a big golf classic at the time. But what a proud Waterford man. Anything he could do for Waterford GA, particularly Waterford hurling, David was the man. Going back to the initial, my first memory getting involved with him was in 89, after the 89 run, when we got to a Munster final and beat Cork out in John McGrath's in the Gold Coast, and you had Christy Dowling and John MacDonald was, I think, chairing it at the time. Fiona was involved, Tom McCarthy, Father Brendan Crowley, all fundraising, just getting it off the ground. But David was a great driver that time. In 92 then, of course, when we had the great success, David was on hand, a big function after winning. I was involved through the Waterford Foods connection at the time as sponsors, but David very much involved with Fiona MacDonald and the subcommittee, and I think Betty was involved, Betty Forrestal as well. But the big night in the Ardrey, having won the Munster and the under-21 All-Ireland, huge night, David very much to the forefront, and then golf classics from then on. But a passionate Waterford man, proud Abbeyside man, but blue and white true and true.
Yeah, was he always there, Kieran, from 89 onwards in terms of fundraising for Waterford teams?
He was really, and he was disappointed certain things would happen that he wouldn't be happy with, and you'd know it. And David, you know how David felt, and he'd say it straight up. But I think Gerald coming along really got him really interested again. He was thrilled with the Gerald McCarthy era and with Mossy Walsh and John Galvin that time, and he was at his real peak around then. He was delighted, and of course then he's idol, of course, Paul Flynn. Paul, he had special players. He had great time for Ken and several other players as well, but Paul Flynn was special to him, and they became lifelong friends. But Paul Flynn to David was a special player and became a very close friend of David's over the years, and still was right up to the very end. And I think Paul Flynn Paul Flynn's style of play used to excite him, you know. And Dave used to go to the matches with Terry Dalton and then Michael Drummy, who was his sidekick for years. Indeed, little and large. Dave was one of the tallest guys you'd know, and Michael probably one of the smaller. I hope he won't mind me saying that. But they got on brilliantly, and then all his family be packed into the Jeep going to the matches, and he wouldn't be ordering 8 tickets, to be 10 tickets at a time, David. And
Did he follow? Did they follow Waterford everywhere, Kieran?
Everywhere, every league game, and up at I remember last time I met him, far away game, a Laois game. I remember we played Laois, and was that earlier this year on a miserable day. You know, like everywhere Waterford were playing, David would be there. Even in the days when we weren't achieving anything to the level we had been over the last 10, 20 years. He was there right the way through, and wore his heart in his sleeve. But to really at fundraising and organising, he was at his best, you know. And his great friend Mossy Walsh, I know, approached him this year, and Paddy Joe Ryan, of course, who was a schoolmate, classmates. Imagine the teacher trying to match Paddy Joe Ryan and David Walsh.
Real handful.
Real handful. But they became lifelong, obviously, and still are lifelong friends. And of course, I meet him regularly down in Casses. But he was cajoled into getting involved. The county board took over the running of the classic this year in Dungarvan Golf Club. But with Dave at the helm, then you had Mossy Wells, Shamie Clear, Jerry Whelan, and of course the great John Jackson. He got a great kick out of Jackson getting involved within the golf club. And how many teams did you get this week, John? You know, and there was great banter within the thing, but it was a huge success again, and again driven by David, as only David would, because anything he put his head to, he'd make it work.
Well, was he good at golf, Kieran?
Decent golfer, yeah. Oh, yeah. Big hitter, of course. Big hitter. And his son Kevin, he loved nothing more than going out with Kevin playing golf. But ironically, he was the incoming captain of Dungarvan Golf Club, you know, which was a great honour again. And it wasn't by choice. I think whatever happened, he was cajoled into doing it, and look, he accepted it. And I knew he, if any man, would make a job of being captain. But I suppose his proudest moment, Tomas, of all the classics he was involved with, when Mary passed away, he was anxious to do something in her memory, so he ran a huge classic for all. There's very different organisations involved for anybody who loses somebody tragically, like David had lost Mary and Molly in a tragic accident that time. And or families who had lost people, young boys and girls through cancer or whatever. So he ran this golf classic, and my God, was it a classic. One of the greatest 2 days ever out in Knocknagrana. And he had people from all over Ireland, got jerseys from all over Ireland from different clubs, backing from clubs. I remember Anthony Daly actually text Daly just to tell him that he had passed away, and Daly made a big mark with David that day, but out in the clubhouse and later on that night, and himself and Fergie too, he were down. But that was David Walsh. He was a very hard man to refuse if he asked you to do something, and I was delighted and honoured when he asked me to be MC for that event outside. But I'll never forget that night. It was one of the most emotional nights I ever had at a function, and I think David got great solace out of the fact it was such a success and kept Mary's name alive. So, and he was very proud of Mary's involved with the ladies' GA as well, and her involvement there really he was proud of as well, but proud of all his family. But the death of Mary, I think he never really got over it.
Kieran, thanks for a lovely tribute to the late David Welch, and our condolences here from everyone in WLR to David Welch's family and friends.